Before we get to our event, just want to make a few quick announcements of other stuff we're doing in the next couple of months. Our Ukrainian Studies Program here at Harriman. Monday, November 15th, the Ukrainian Film Club will be showing the film Silvestrov. Yuri Shevchuk, the head of the club, will be leading the discussion and showing the film. It's a film at 6:30 p.m. here in the atrium. November 16th, we will have our tribute to Victoria Amelia, featuring several people that are in the room, including Andryczyk and Jennifer and Will and myself and our director. So that's at 6 p.m. in the Harriman Atrium, also where the film is. That's on Tuesday. November 28th, we'll have an evening with our writer-in-residence, Andryczyk, which also will be taking place in the evening in the atrium. And then we have a very interesting conference that our Yatsik postdoctoral scholar Emma Mateo has put together, called A Decade After the Euromaidan, reflecting on Ukraine's revolution of dignity and its ongoing impact. That's December 5th. It's a morning to afternoon session from 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. So please check that out. And then finally, already on January 25th, I'll be presenting my latest anthology, Ukraine 22, Ukrainian Writers Respond to War, at 4 p.m. So please come, and all this information is in our website, so you get more information about that. So I will, basically the way our event looks today, I will briefly introduce our presenters, and they will be reading the poetry, both in the original and in English translation, and then we'll have a chance to ask questions to our presenters. So presenting today are Iya Kiva, poet, translator, and journalist. She was born in Donetsk and fled the war in 2014 to settle in Kyiv. Shortly after arriving, she began shifting from writing in her native Russian to writing in her second language, Ukrainian. She's the author of 2 volumes of poetry and the recipient of numerous awards for her poetry and translations. She is currently a fellow at the University of Iowa's International Writing Program. Snatched it from there for this wonderful event. Also presenting today, Amelia Glaser, a translator and professor of literature at UC San Diego. Her research and teaching interests include Russian literature and film, transnational Jewish literature, the literature of Ukraine, the literature of imagination to the US, the Russian critical tradition, translation theory and practice. She is currently writing about poetry in contemporary Ukraine. So please join me in greeting to Columbia University, our presenters.
Marco, thank you so much for having us. And it's really a pleasure. This is actually Iya's last day in the United States, the very end of her program. Yes. Yeah. So we get this is the send off. This and one more event tonight. Should we start with English? Yeah. Okay, so we'll read a selection of poems, and I will add that I've been translating these together with my colleague and friend Yulia Ilchuk at Stanford University. These are our co-translations. We started to publish them on the journal Lit Hub right after the full-scale invasion in February of 2022, and we now are in contract with Huri Press of Harvard to have a volume of our translations of Iya's poetry in a bilingual edition come out in 2024. So that's in completion as we speak. So we'll read, we found that it works well for me to read the English first and then have Iya read the Ukrainian so that you can kind of think about the meaning if you're not a Ukrainian speaker as you listen to the sounds of the poem.
I wanted to say, thank you, Marco, for this
Introduction.
Yes. And I wanted to say that in the beginning of December, my short poetry collection book will appear.
Of course. Oh, your book. That's
but
what
but I don't know how it will be in English. Сміх згаслого вогнища. It's like
so laughter put out in the fire. Yes, is that how you would?
Сміх згаслої ватри.
Ivatri. Oh, how would you say this?
The laughter of the subdued fire or the
Of the extinguished fire.
It's
The laughter of the
yes,
extinguished fire.
And this is like paradoxal metaphor of war at all.
And this has just come out last week.
No,
Just- yes.
in the beginning of December.
In the beginning of December, it comes out, so it's almost out.
Yeah.
Excellent. 8 years of saying back home, there's a war. So I finally accept it. My home is a war. It's a slow train cross country, east to west, where death transports life. Night falls to the ground with the spasms of wilted flowers and lies down in our mouths with teeth rotten from silence. Now our language is volunteer refugee chatter, where sirens sing songs to Odysseus. Now our memory is freedom's stained vyshyvanka, her long walk from heart to heart.
Thank you, and I need to put a little bit context. Sorry, my English bad with mistakes, but now you can understand me. That all these first poems from which we will start now were written in I don't know, after first months of full invasion, and it was time then when many Ukrainian writers all started like before war. I was a writer because all writers were not all, but it's like my guess. I know that many of my friends among writers were totally frustrated. We didn't understand what our job can change in this world, because literature works with improving of empathy, and then in humanity. Because when we read literature and doing something with art at all, we can be better. We can feel other people deeper, and it's like I don't know. Literature is a machine for humanity, to be more people than we people are. That's why it's about language, about mouth, about culture, like I don't know. No, that's why you can hear many things about language, mouth, how I feel, these words, this concentration on these things, because it was really time of totally frustration for many people, their occupations too, because I met people on the third day of full invasion who lost their jobs, and they went abroad not due to the fear. They went abroad because they wanted to find a job and help their relatives in our army, for example. Okay. Thank you. I'm not so bad. 8 років казати: в мене вдома війна, щоб нарешті прийняти мій дім – це війна. Її потяг повільний зі сходу на захід країни, у якому смерть життя перевозить. Ніч заходить у землю судомими квітів змарнілих і лягає в роти нам гнилими зубами мовчання. Наша мова тепер волонтерсько-біженський чад, у якому сирени співають пісень Одіссею. Наша пам'ять тепер брудна вишиванка свободи, її довга хода від серця до серця.
So we'll stop occasionally in between to tell little bits and pieces about these poems, but I'll read now. We'll read 2 poems about refugees, the station, and if it's okay, I think it's worth saying that you have been a refugee twice over, first from Donetsk, and Marco has already said this.
I don't read my second experience becoming refugee second, because it was a occasional thing, because I stayed as a writer's resident in February of 2022. It was south part of Kyiv region, and I guess that I will have opportunity to come back home on first day. All Texas city is closed. In reality, Kyiv was closed, and all roads are full of cars. Taxi, it was impossible to take taxi from this region to Kyiv or from Kyiv to this region because it was closed. It wasn't free by local with power, Klitschko and other, because they needed to control perimeter border of city for any money. I don't know, $1,000,000. No, I didn't have, but I don't know.
You couldn't have gotten through anyway.
All these buses and nothing, and it was some occasional things because I took cars to this short destination, electrički.
The commuter train.
Two local trains and one train. And with one train, I used to go somewhere from Kyiv because I understood that I can't return to Kyiv. Where was my mother, and then I was Kyiv first day. I was a so-called safety, and it was time that Babin Yar was under missiles, and we lived 1 kilometer or less near. Babin Yar, yes.
I remember Babin Yar was hit by missiles.
Yes, not
the
only
second group,
things, many things, like how in many districts of Kyiv was not so quite time. I don't treat this experience like a refugee, second to becoming refugee. Second time, because for me that I went to Lviv, it was like from movies, because Tereborona, how we
self-defense.
Thank you. The defense
Territorial
effort.
defense.
Yes.
Territorial defense stopped this train, which didn't exist in any shadow, by hand and weapon only. Like, hi.
Yeah.
It's from movies about wars of 20th century. Yes, and also I arrived to Lviv, found for myself some volunteer things at the railway station, like help to sort humanitarian aid, to making camouflage nets. I did this all time before going here. In the center of Lviv, at the library of Ploshcha Square Rynek. Yes, and I have a lot of these events, and from Lviv it's easier to go abroad than from Kyiv. I'm perhaps good look, but I'm not so young person for which hands. And this diptych appeared like but
So the
refugee station, that when I was a volunteer at the first month at the station, this was like really, it looked like really hell, because even volunteers in reality, we didn't know how we can help these people, because many people in Lanzug,
the people that are staying
Lanzug.
In Lanzug and
Chain? Because this system looked like a chain of many people. You stay only here. Other people, I don't know how to walk people to some places or staying tonight. And each person knew only what you do.
Right. I see.
And it's built on trust.
I see.
You do this. Call, find, we need this. Somebody came to you, help on the second step. And yes, no, it's for me was like fixation Only perhaps for me, very important thing is refugees station. Why war always sit at their all chairs at the same time in Ukraine? Because in Ukraine we have experience of war. If I calculate it good, in each generation about 5 generations or more. And very often people from other countries write me that we haven't this experience of war at all. And for us, for Ukrainians, it's not very difficult to imagine what is it to live without war, because I don't know. Only my father hadn't such experience, but my father was killed during the so-called peace. And other people, each person in my family, I think, or they were soldiers, or they were killed during the Second World War, astrobaiters, all this experience, and like civilians, like soldiers, like in each family, I think, in Ukraine. And being refugees this year, it's like for me like a little bit auto-ironical thing that in reality, yes, I spent my first night in Lviv on the floor at the theater of Lesser Ukrainka, because this place became like shelter, or part of this theater became like shelter. And I thought at this time how many things were changed, because theater is a place of I don't know, beauty, art, some beautiful things, and now this is like chaos, people everywhere, and like a little shelter, and this very famous this woman, this manicure, red manicure after butcher, because usually we treat manicure like beauty, like women's self-presentations or like beauty, but after that I remember that I don't like manicure from my own reasons, but in which time it was.
Let me explain quickly about the manicure. There was a photo that circulated everywhere on social media. You may have all seen it. That was an image of a woman who had been murdered, and just her hand with this manicured fingernails. And so after that, it became
like
this very strict.
And it was flash mob that many people wanted to.
They would put their own manicures. They would write.
But it was a guest to receive more attention to butcher genocide, and but it was good motivation from their side. But for me, it was something like impossible, because a manicure on hands of a live person and dead person and such killed person in such a method have very, very different meanings for me. But it was not my question for this flash mob, for our reality. Then I don't know. Yes.
So all of this comes up, and
we need to return.
We'll read the poems, but what you'll see is this emotional experience of the very beginning of the war, of both arriving in Lviv, but also volunteering with others who are just arriving in Lviv from parts east. So first we'll read Refugees, the Station. Yes.
Don't remember.
Vision.
Okay, yeah.
Refugees, the Station. The long road home to a home no longer there lays breath tracks through the station in Lviv. People with death faces gaze at their empty lives the way last year's snowmen gaze at the war's first flowers. Tears collect in their eyes like dried glue. You can only remove those ordeals along with their eyes to embed the black apple trees of time in the dusty pathways of their palms. The rain greets exiles with postcards from family albums where war always sits in all the chairs, bullet hole for a mouth smiling at the birdie of death, as if at a joke others can't crack. The world has studied the photo captions countless times. Mariupol, Hostomel, Irpin, Borodyanka, Chernihiv, Bucha. This Cyrillic music hangs in the air like the long flame that sticks beneath your nails with the dirty water of shame. Just one step, death, and we'll eat you for dinner. Our rusty tin can lives will break your teeth. Just one step, death, and you'll stay at this table like a cracked tray strewn with free people's hair. People step in puddles because there are no other paths, except to accept defeat like free bread at the station into which volunteers slip the keys to future lives, if only we can find the strength to look love in the eyes. War is the great defeat of culture, words whispered on all the book covers, but the rusty grass of war crimes spreads in their mouths, and the amber of silence gathers troops in its cheeks. We hammer testimonies like nails into children's hands and feet, like nighttime talk that no one remembers later. Look closer. The ash of this piece of paper was once called mitinka.
And short remark that I don't know if it's understandable that with diminutive mitinka, we haven't in Ukraine said such diminutive. Only in Russia people call other people mitya or mitinka.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but I remember it from a university, like examples of our lectures, professors at Mitinka or Mikolasha. This is not Ukrainian variant, and why this Mitinka? No, because with like Russian version for person who some changing understanding of identity and other people. Довга дорога додому, якого нема. Прокладає колії дихання крізь Львівський вокзал. Люди з обличчями мертвих дивляться на порожнє життя, як торішні сніговики на перші квіти війни. Сльози стоять в їхніх очах, наче засохлий клей. Віддерти цей досвід можна хіба що разом з очима, щоб ставити в них чорні яблуні часу, що ростуть на запалених стежках їхніх долонь. Дощ вітає вигнанців, поштівками з родинних альбомів, на яких війна завжди сидить відразу на всіх стільцях. І посміхається пташиці смерті, дірявою колею рота, немов би на жарт, який інші просто не вміють розповідати. Світ роздивляється підписи до фотографій безліч разів. Маріуполь, Гостомель, Ірпінь, Бородянка, Чернігів, Буча. Ця кирилична музика висить у повітрі, мов довгий вогонь, який застигає під нігтями брудною водою сорому. Зроби лише крок, смерте, і ми з'їмо тебе на вечерю. І ржаві бляшанки наших життів тобі не по зубах. Зроби лише крок, смерте, і залишишся при цьому столі, мов порепанатація, вкрита волоссям вільних людей. Люди йдуть по калюжах, бо немає тут інших шляхів, крім як приймати власну поразку, мов хліб на вокзалі, у який волонтери кладуть ключі від майбутніх життів, якщо в нас вистачить сил глянути в очі любові. Війна – велика поразка культури, шепочуть слова на обкладинках всіх книжок, але злочинів і ржава травичка росте в їхніх ротах, і мовчання бурштин збирає військо своє за щоками. Ми вбиваємо свідчення, наче цвяхи, в руки та ноги дітей, як розмову нічну, в якої пізніше ніхто не згадає. Придивися уважніше попіл цього папірця, колись кликали мітінка.
Refugees, the theater. First night in Safe City, as we call the country's west, you spend it on the theater floor like a prop for a war you can watch for free, reflected in all the eyes of the terrified beasts. You can still buy a front row ticket to World War III, wrote a famous Western journalist on the eve of the Great Flood. The light falls so well that the world can see the dirt under your nails, and your hair, grown out since your last trip to Poland, has split like the branches on your Jewish family tree when a righteous piece of chalk marks it with a cross. Your nails are unpainted, 8 years since your last manicure, and when you read "For the Bucha Woman," will school teachers discuss this photo in class, posted beneath somebody's sleek cherry orchard fingers? You ask the red nail polish, is the comparison embarrassing? But now we, like the daffodils old women sell at bus stops, are never embarrassed to be and not to be like the bitter bulbs of trees that grow on history's margins. This will be you in a couple of days, walking down Freedom Avenue, not a metaphor, to leave all your prophetic dreams on the barbershop floor. But this won't save you, for like a madman with a razor blade of longing under his nails, memory leads you across a dusty field of dead tubers, so vast that even in children's eyes you see soil. But for now, you're lying on the theater floor like a prop, and you tremble with the rumbling trams, those civilian singers in the chorus of aerial warfare, and you can't pull the wax from modern music lovers' eyes.
Біженці театр. Першу ніч у безпечному місті. Так ми кажемо про захід країни. Ти проводиш на підлозі театру, мов реквізит. До війни, яку можна дивитись у вільному доступі. Відразу в усіх очах переляканих насмерть тварин. Ви ще встигаєте купити квиток у перший ряд Третьої світової? Писав напередодні Великої повені відомий західний журналіст. Світло падає добре, і світ встигає побачити бруд у тебе під нігтями і ще довге, не стрижене з пощу волосся, яке потріскує єврейськими гілками родоводу, коли крейда добра креслить на ньому хрест, а манікюру в тебе немає. 8 років, як його не було. І коли ти читаєш це за ту жінку з Бучі, шкільні вчителі розкажуть про цю фотографію під чиїмось садочком вишневим на пещених пальцях, то питаєш червоної фарби, чи їй не соромно за це порівняння, але нам, мов нарцисам, у бабусь на зупинках тепер ніколи не соромно бути і не бути, гіркими цибулинами дерев, що ростуть на узбіччі історії. Це за кілька днів ти йтимеш проспектом Свободи, це не метафора, щоби кинути всі віщі сни на підлогу чоловічої перукарні, але це не рятує, мов божевільний з лезом туги під нігтями. Пам'ять водить тебе запиленим полем з мертвими картоплинами, таким довгим, що ти і в дітей бачиш землю замість очей. А нині ти лежиш на підлозі театру, мов реквізит, і здригаєшся від зеленчання трамваїв, цих цивільних півчих у хорі військової авіації, і не можеш вийняти віск з вух любителів сучасної музики.
On the unmarked graves of our lives, war plants paper flowers, the suffocating blossoms of frozen time whose eyelid pages are cut with a death knife. The borders of light and dark flatten into a platter of laughter at the old fable about good defeating evil. Cozy world, your unwanted children have lost the ability to hear anything but atonal music, lost the ability to spell the word love out of Legos, lost the ability to look their future in the face with trusting eyes, empty as their parents' houses. Long is the road to safety, this epic tale of freedom smeared in the blood of the new ABCs of history, where every word must be looked up in the dictionary. And our mouths fill with the body of the earth that's caught like a noble beast in a trap of courage, slamming with all its weight our immobilized tongues toward a boat, mute amid rocks of fruitless testimony. I've seen these desolate shores of justice before. I've seen these keys before in the beaks of birds of passage.
Мгм. Ну, yeah. That Amelia asked me about this twice experience of refugee, and I inside me don't think about it in such way, but that this like you have two wars in your experience. I agree with this. It is the same war, but it's like twice, like two war, the same war, like two war, like two experience, because many things I needed to go again to some questions and try to understand what I think about home, about many things, and for me, which question I guess were closed, but not. Yes. На безіменних могилах наших життів війна висаджує квіти з паперу. Цей задушливий цвіт застиглого часу, в якому сторінкам розрізають повіки ножичком смерті. Кордони світлої темряви стають пласкою тарілкою сміху над старенькою казкою про перемогу добра над злом. Затишний світе, небажані діти твої втратили здатність чути будь-що, крім атональної музики. Втратили здатність складати з кубиків лего слово «любов». Втратили здатність дивитись в обличчя майбутньому, порожніми, мов будинки батьків, очима довіри. Довгий, мов шлях до безпеки, епос свободи, заляпаний кров'ю нової абетки історії, в якій кожне слово доводиться вчити зі словником, а наші роти заповнюють тіло землі, яка, мов величний звір, лежить у пастці сміливості, ваготою своєю притискаючи нам знерухомлені язики до човна німоти, десь поміж скелями марних свідоцтв. Я вже бачила десь ці занедбані береги справедливості. Я вже бачила десь ці ключі у дзьобах перелітних птахів. And next, next poem, in reality, to understand it better, you need to see it, but I can describe that all things connected to the world, like attention, air rate, are in the parentheses. Yes, that's why when people write their poems, they think about writing and all that. Yes.
We can do this. Memory dries like grass in summer's garden, air raids in most regions of Ukraine. I turn the key in a broken lock and the door to the past closes. Somewhere in my inner east, space is growing over with danger weeds. Somewhere and nowhere, a favorite childhood bogey tale of falling in the slag heap. Attention, everyone, to a shelter. What do you feel now? They ask in almost every interview. Creaky, Krieg, throat cut with a bottle shank shape of a Donbass rose, glass shards of a stolen youth in your hands and feet. These pretty metaphors are literature's crooked mirror. I can't remember what I feel. Attention, the air raid is going off. And I'm trying to factor myself out of the parentheses.
Пам'ять стає сухою, як трава з саду літа. Повітряна тривога в більшості областей України. Я провертаю ключ у поламаному замку. І двері в минуле зачиняються. Простір десь там на сході, всередині мене, заростає бур'яном небезпеки, десь тут і ніде. Провалитися в терикон, улюблена лякалка з дитинства. Увага, всі в укриття. Що ви зараз відчуваєте, питаючи не в кожному інтерв'ю. Кригу, кріг, розочкою Донбасу, порізане горло. Скло вкраденої молодості в руках і ногах. Ці красиві метафори, криве дзеркало, літератури. Я не можу згадати, що відчуваю. Увага, відбій. повітряної тривоги і виношу себе за дужки.
An hour of nightmares approaches, so August begins, scarier than war's leaky blanket, or lighter than a child's melon-sliced smile, if you can't glimpse it from here through military binoculars. I can't see what I'm standing on. I'm just drifting off, drifting off, drifting off, drifting off. In a bad dream, running rings inside the oak in a nearby park. It's so muggy today, you say, and you dissolve into the darkness of the news from the war that tightens around your neck like a black ribbon. I'm cold, I say. I want to sleep all the time. 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 As if you could kill the war with a stifling slumber pillow, and I pull the nightmare from a stranger's dream like a knife from the pocket of forgiveness. And the blood doesn't hurt. It just drips, 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 like the tears of Ukrainian woods.
Okay. Because Amelia tried me to tell me that want to sleep all the time. It's very long, and we need use. I just want to sleep. I just want to sleep. I just want to sleep. Because yes, you got весь час хочу спати. Весь час хочу спати. It's
You're seeing a translation in the process, and we have these conversations that are like, I learned so much from.
I think at the end we will have crime. Yes, okay. Час кошмарів надходить. Так починається серпень. Страшніших за діряву ковдру війни чи легших за кавунову скибку дитячої усмішки. Не розгледити звідси у жоден військовий бінокль. Не бачу, на чому стою, лише падаю в сон. Падаю в сон, падаю в сон, падаю в сон, в лихе сновидіння, закільцоване в дубі найближчого парку. Так парко сьогодні говориш і розчиняєшся в темряві воєнних новин, що довкола шиї звелися чорною стрічкою. Я ж кажу, мені холодно, я хочу спати. Весь час хочу спати, весь час хочу спати, весь час хочу спати. Наче війну можна вбити душною подушкою дрімоти. І виймаю кошмар зі сну незнайомця, наче ніж із кишені пробачення. І кров не болить, лише падає, 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 як сльози українських лісів. Я не знаю,
Забуваю, як думати.
Ну, окей. Original. Okay. Just a moment. This poem is dedicated to Russian language, and it was like very often people ask about the switching of between language
switching languages, just
switching language in very mechanical way. It's like you switch from one channel in television to another. I don't know, but for me it's about feeling. If you can't feel you're free in, for example, Ukrainian language, it's impossible to go with language. No, it was like something not honest with you. And but I was really surprised that then I very often I catch myself that now if I use my last bastion poetry, and even here I use Ukrainian only, that very often I catch myself that I don't remember how to say something in Russian. If I have this if I need to use Russian like language of international conversation, very often, for example, I say no, not to jest, тобто.
Yeah. So there's this like, and, that is to say in Russian.
Yes, and I was really surprised that I understand I'm not like this And Russian language is like I can't hear it around me. No, because I was a volunteer, and I know that many people at this first month really afraid to come to volunteers and to start conversation in Russian. It was very terrible for me. And I understand that people have their stories. I don't know their stories, and I have no right to think bad about these people. I don't know their problems, but I was really surprised that sometimes I really don't remember how something in Russian at all, but I studied with language about 30 years. No, but, now I'm biggest part of my life now, and sometimes for me Russian language like triggered too, because I even when I heard from back somewhere in Lviv, I became a little bit nervous. And the worst experience after full invasion was for me in Tbilisi. There was the festival this summer, because I felt like in Russian occupation in this city. I went out only with music in my ears. Really, it's no, because we use not our Ukrainian Russian. Here it's not like Russian.
Yeah,
And,
Tbilisi is so full of
I have
Russians nowadays,
such bad reaction even from occupation of the net. I don't know what about all these beautiful guys, but we really heard that they speak to us using Russian language. Sometimes it's very horrible thing. Yes. I don't know if I make all these remarks.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
It's like
it's good.
To be not so nervous. Yes.
No, it's good. I'm forgetting how to think in my native tongue. Get behind me, I say. I don't know you. Your babbling's like an invasive weed gnawing into my soul with war's red blossoms. Grains of memory burn my throat. The words strength, now a field of violence, long as the river's detached sleeve where death lurks. Slap me across the cheeks, right, then left. I won't forgive your wild silence. Sink your fangs in, sharp as pain. You'll never hear my scream. The childhood mine shaft gives no more shelter, like the neck of a dried flower stuck between the teeth of history books. I sew your mouth with coarse threads to speak, never to speak again.
Забуваю, як думати, рідною мовою. Кажу, відійди від мене, не знаю тебе. Белькотіння твоє, мов хижий бур'ян, вризається в землю мою червоним квітом війни. Збіжжя пам'яті палає в горлянці, сила слів твоїх. Стає полем насилля, довгим, мов відірваний річки рукав, у якому ховається смерть, бий мене по щоках, правій і лівій, я не зможу пробачити дике мовчання твоє. Вбивай в мене ікла свої гострі, як білі, не дочекатись тобі мого крику. Шахта дитинства більше не є укриттям, мов би шия зів'ялої квітки, стирчить між зубів історичних книжок. Я зашиваю грубими нитками рота тобі, щоб говорити, щоб ніколи вже не говорити. And one remark, I don't like to explain my own poems, but for foreign auditorium, that now we live mostly in secular world, but not looking for some words in this world, not. But no, I don't know in post-Christianity, Christian world. Very often people are not so religious, and this poem is built on two quotes from Bible and one place. That's association, some association about cheeks. It's very understandable, and this that's
get behind me. Yeah.
Oh, it's in English.
Get behind me.
Get behind me. It's I remember this in some place when Jesus spoke with
With Satan.
Satan in the desert,
Mhm.
and other відкривання від Іоанна, revelation.
The revelation. of
As
John.
the revelation, and I not like this description like Russian, like enemy's language,
Mhm.
but in reality, I did hear something like this.
Mhm, mhm.
No, because no, I don't like this description for many reasons. Yes, but for me, this feeling, for me, it was like attempt to catch this feeling that you not in safety.
Mhm.
Then you meet this Russian language somewhere, especially abroad, Ukraine, because in Ukraine, no, we're sure that we among Ukrainians, it's the most safe place for Ukrainians now, because we really sure that around us, Ukrainians or friends, or we all are in the same boat.
Mhm.
Yes.
We thank God for the internet, because Yulia and I often, when we're translating, if we hit a phrase that sounds vaguely like a citation from someplace, we'll quickly Google it and figure out that that Ukrainian phrase indeed comes from the Ukrainian translation of the Bible. And then we'll have our King James translation of the Bible where we can look up the same passage. And that's what we tend to usually cite when we translate, although sometimes we've used other
Because I don't know, I
translations.
have it. I know this from like years and years, even in this translation into some Slavic language. Many people don't religious a lot, or don't read Bible very often, and they don't understand all this undertext.
Oh, the subtext.
Subtext by this Bible, this yes, because no, I don't know. We can use, but we can use Bible not in religious way. This is like great book.
It's good literature.
It's like it's very good poetry, especially Psalms. Yeah, it's not joke. I really Psalms like poetry. Because it's beautiful poetry, and for me it is each time for me it's like surprise, because it's book like intercultural intertext, like intertext for understanding between different cultures.
Yeah.
I don't know if we need this explanation about
The rose hip.
rose and
Maybe.
white.
Yeah, I mean, the flower.
I
You go ahead.
don't want to explain now so much, but for me, no, if you know, rose is one of the symbols of Donetsk. Roses and coal, and we have very strange mythology, because like this very not contrast things. In underground, we have coal, or our like my grandfather miners.
It's a mining, it's a huge mining industry.
And very
Donbass.
hard work. I don't know how it's in English.
They have to go down into the mines underground.
No, it's not only down. Ти працюєш на колінах, от в такому просторі, там гаряче, вода, і всі ці люди потім тяжко хворіють.
It's a very difficult, very hard labor. You're sitting there on your knees working.
Yes,
it's hot.
Very often people after this job have problems.
Yes.
Not
problems.
with plugs. And my grandfather had problem with knees. I don't remember.
From
9 of his
Knees.
problem. Так. I don't know. No, but this is two main problems, and it's very interesting. This, but on the ground we have this like city of million of roses, and when I was a child, I don't remember, but I remember when I was 5, it was like reality. We had many roses, and I use very often in my poetry this image of rose and image of wild rose. Image of rose, it's I don't know, like opposite, like something kind and evil, like something beauty and non-beauty, safety, safe situation, not safe situation, many. Because when I was a child, my father explained me that we have this
Rose hip. The
rose hip.
Yeah.
We have rose hips only in one situation. If people have no time or people finish to take care about roses, because and if you see rose hip, it means that you don't understand where is there's this garden.
The gardener, the person that's taking care of the.
No, I don't know. When I was a child, I built a lot of things in my mind around this, but very often I use rose and rose hip like symbols, metaphors, my own associations with many things. Yes.
All right. A rose hip grew over this city. In the darkness, it looked like a threat. You touch tenderness softly, blood pierces your throat, falling at your feet like a heartbeat stitched with pain, a shadow of shadows that stealthily gouges the eyes. The roses' songs are sprinkled with flowers of snow and grow stagnant in ruddy pots of wildness, like rage, our daily bread, on the tongue. So the cry becomes a craft and poetry a carpenter. A bush becomes a tree and its branches barbed wire hooks. And together all of them cling to the air as a bird clings with its wings to freedom's edge, grasping the December sky's maternal breast as if unwilling to accept this metamorphosis as love's children from a forsaken paradise. Meanwhile, the rose hip keeps telling its story.
Mm-hmm. Так розрослася шипшина у цьому місті, що в темряві від загрози не відрізнити. Тихо торкаєшся ніжності, кров простромлює горла, падаючи під ноги вишитим з болю серцебиттям, тінню тіней, що непомітно виколюють очі. Пісні троянд осипаються квітками снігу і застигають в червоних горщиках здичавілості, наче лють, хліб наш щоденний на піднебінні. Та крик стає ремеслом, а поезія Теслою, кущ стає деревом, а гілки гачками колючого дроту. І всі разом чіпляються за повітря, як птаха крилом, за краєчок свободи. Хапають материнську грудь гридневого неба, немовби не хочуть приймати це переродження, як діти любові з полишеного раю. Шипшина тим часом продовжує оповідь.
Yeah, how are we doing? Two more? Okay.
We have time for questions.
Okay. Yeah, what do you think?
One,
Two, I think we can do.
two, and
Yeah, maybe we'll just do two straight through and then we'll do
Yeah,
questions. Which, this one?
this and next.
Do you think about the rain while emerging from the forest of your body, the way darkness emerges from under the fingernail of a full moon? Do you notice yourself swathed in the warm rags of winter in the midst of a landscape that isn't your own? Do you long to appropriate this air bitter as a walnut's youth, light as a lonely wind's swing? Can you see the fog's back perfectly arched between the hills, still untouched by an artist's vision? Can you describe it without moving your lips, filling every gap in time with a scream? Can you leave holes in this scream for viewers, building a home from a scream, a giant oral cavity? Do you feel a flicker of love when you look in the mirror, shedding all possessive pronouns from the flower of your skin? Do you turn on the radio piece while counting hope's steps? Do you feel alive in life's punctuation marks?
Чи думаєш ти про дощ, виходячи з лісу власного тіла? Як темрява виходить з-під нігтя повного місяця? Чи помічаєш себе обмотану теплим ганчір'ям зими? серед ландшафту, який тобі не належить? Чи хочеш привласнити це гірке, як горіхова молодість, повітря, легкість якого, наче самотня гойдалка вітру? Чи бачиш між гір спину туману, ідеально мов вигін, якого ще не торкався погляд художника? Чи можеш про це розповісти, не розтуливши рота, кожну щілину часу, забиваючи криком? Чи робиш ти в цьому крику отвори для глядачів, будуючи з крику дім, цю велику ротову порожнину? Чи відчуваєш вогник любові, коли дивишся в дзеркало, з квітки шкіри, скидаючи всі присвійні займенники? Чи вмикаєш ти радіо миру, коли рахуєш кроки надії? Чи відчуваєш себе живою у розділових знаках життя? Окей. I remember this moment. Yes, we can use one poem in Russian. And that yeah, we can.
Yeah.
I was really angry.
Yeah.
I was really angry when I wrote this poem.
Yeah. And I, of course, got the poem and started to translate it. And translators appear in the poem. And suddenly I felt like, oh, translators are now part of this. Even Iya's translators are part of the poetry, and we're all together, and we're all part, you know, there's a sense, not that it's about me, but there's a sense.
No,
that
if you remember, very often Ukrainian intellectuals and public person use this phrase to continue to explain Ukraine. But in reality, these conversations about war, even inside country, are not understandable at all. People who live in the same building with many floors very often can't understand each other, because from one side they see myself, and from other side no. And for me it's big question if when we describe these wars, different wars, if we can understand each other or not understand, what about this experience and all these words about experience? No, it's like philosophical question.
Yeah.
And
Big
last,
question.
and last.
Big question.
Big question.
Yeah. How to explain myself? The salt in my hands turned to coal. The earth becomes ash and my body water. Why a branch needs a tree is unclear if you see the flowers and forget the roots, but then light mixes with fiction and love merges with an island, the path toward which it's never too late to begin, so that the river, pausing in winter's swollen embrace, forgets why it left the stream bed, the shores, the country, left the page, why time, which is hollow like a clock, grows heavier before our eyes, why an eyelid turns to stone, why translators work in the war, why war needs translators, why on this paper there's a stain that can't be moved with a finger, only destroyed. The mine shaft of a fall is long, like Hope's neck, but it too will cool, and silence's wedding rings slip from my fingers like the shadows from our mortal faces. The old walls are unclenching their fists, and new people jangle in the building like the coins from a broken piggy bank. Why are we giving ourselves away like steam in the frost to mere nothingness? Why are we stuffing the chestnuts of words down unfilled generations' throats? Why are we walking, holding our breath along the railroad track of history? They will tell it again and again and again on our behalf. Why are we looking into the windows of a better world if tenderness for the poor isn't worth the music? If there won't be enough money left to sing a single note? Why are we shifting, not to a whisper, but into that thread of water between a bird and the sky? Why do we call silence quiet fire and carry stolen air in the pockets of our shame? This tear-soiled handkerchief will never burn.
Как объяснить здесь себя? Соль в руках превращается в уголь. Земля становится пеплом, а тело водой. Для чего ветки дерева? Не понять, пока видишь цветы и не помнишь корней. Но потом свет смыкается с вымыслом, а любовь сливается с островом, дорогу к которому никогда не поздно начать, чтобы река в распухших объятиях зимы, остановившись, забыла, зачем вышла из русла, из берегов, из страны, из страницы, зачем это время полое, как часы на глазах, тяжелеет, зачем века становится камнем, зачем переводчики работают на войне, зачем в войне переводчики, зачем на бумаге пятно, которое пальцем не сдвинуть, только сломать. Шахта падения, как шея надежды длинна, но и она остывает, а тишины обручальные кольца с пальцев слетают, как тени с лиц наших смертных. В старых стен разжимаются кулаки, и в доме звенят новые люди, как монеты копилки разбившиеся. Зачем мы себя отдаем, словно пар на морозе? Простому ничто, зачем набиваем каштанами слов глотки несбывшихся поколений? Зачем идем не дыша вдоль железной дороги истории? Ее опять и опять и опять расскажут за нас. Зачем смотрим в окна лучшего мира, если нежность для бедных не стоит и музыки, если денег не хватит пропеть даже звук? Зачем переходим не на шепот, на нитку воды меж птицей и небом? Зачем называем молчание тихим огнем, носим в карманах стыда ворованный воздух? Слез, грязный платочек никогда не горит.
You for your readings and for the commentary in to set up some of these poems. We have about a half an hour for Q&A, and we're opening it up to people watching online as well, but of course, people physically present have the first option. So if anybody has a question, please just raise your hand. Yes, Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I'm a master's student at the Harriman Institute. And I'm always really interested in the practical process of joint translation. Almost exactly a year ago now at Harriman, we had an event with two translators, co-translators. I think it was Jennifer Gross and Piotr Sommer, who were working on a selected poems of Jerzy Fitzowski, the Polish poet.
Yeah.
And it honestly, hearing them describe the process, it had a Rashomon effect. It was like a totally different description from the two of them. And so I'm curious about how you go about this with your co-translator, and then also how you collaborate with a poet who speaks English.
Yeah. Yeah, great. So I can say quickly about my translation with Yulia, and then we'll talk a little bit about our translations together once Iya enters, after we've done our, strongest draft we can come up with without her. I love translating together. And I don't know Jennifer, but I know Piotr, and I can imagine that, he's also translated his own work, and that would be a really interesting person to collaborate with. But I love translating with Yulia. And the truth is, we started translating together in about 2015, only because we had a Ukrainian poet was visiting both of our campuses, UC San Diego and Stanford. It was Serhiy Zhadan. We had these new poems of his that we wanted to read at a reading. And so, together we worked on getting the best possible translation. We realized we just had fun doing it. Yulia does these very kind of literal things. And then I kind of play with them in English and try to make them something that captures some of the rhythm and captures some of the sound. But we had this plan that we were going to do a volume of just Ukrainian poets in translation. We hatched this plan around 2017. We were in Kyiv together. We met Iya in about 2019, and Andrei was there too. It was this like beautiful morning in a cafe when we were meeting with all these people. It was great. And
Golden Gates.
Yes, exactly, by the Golden Gates. And it was maybe your suggestion. And we said, okay, great, we're going to do this volume, and it's going to be a lot of poets just writing in Ukraine, but it's going to be like mostly women. And we're just going to be like, what? If anybody asks, like, why do we have some? Because there's so many women that are writing poetry, but we didn't want to do a volume that was women's poetry because then it would get categorized. So our big plan was, we really wanted to highlight the poets that deserve to be translated and haven't been translated enough. And that happened to be a lot of just this amazing explosion of poetry by an up and coming generation. And then COVID hit. And we'd been kind of dragging on the translation because we had other responsibilities at our work. And then COVID happened, and I have 2 children, and my days were crazy, and I was teaching on Zoom. And Yulia was in Kyiv at the time. And so we would meet, it was her morning and my night. I would meet after my children went to bed during COVID on Zoom. And it was like this time out of time where we would just sit together in like all of 2020 on Zoom, and everything was quiet. And we would just translate together, and we would work a little bit on our own, but mostly we would just sit there together and kind of go through the variants. And that's how we started to do it. But then once we kind of got going, we would share these Google spreadsheets and Google documents, and we would have Julia's version, Amelia's version, and then we would compare them. And sometimes I would do the first, and sometimes she would do the first, and then we'd swap. So that's kind of how we work together. And it's our different responsibilities are fairly clear. But we also will then sit together and talk through everything and look things up on Google Images to make sure that we're talking about a slag heap and not something else, or a rose hip, or these words that we maybe aren't familiar with. But now we actually have a shared Google Doc with Iya, and we work on it together, the 3 of us. But Iya is a poet, as you know, and so the sound is very important.
I'm not only poet. I work like editor after university, 23, it's about 15 years, and I can imagine very often choices of other people. I see not text, but I can see job of my colleagues very often.
Yes.
Then they edit me, and I very quickly understand if it's a good job or they don't understand something. And we now have this very this period where, how did you translate this place in this way? I said, please imagine, it's terrible. I said, yeah, but we discussed about 4 hours about this place. We did a great job. And I understand that. I understand because Amelia and Yulia wanted, don't ask me each place. They wanted to try understand and interpret by themselves. I like this. To do this too, I ask. I usually, if I translate contemporary poets, I ask only at the end. Only at the end, if I really not sure that I. No, or then I show with translations. I really like some things like, oh, this is very, very, very difficult place. You have this polysemantical things and with many things. Yeah, we're really thankful that you treat this place like very difficult, but we meant very simple things. And sometimes, for example, Amelia knows already that I like this allusions to Bible, to many things. And sometimes I see that Amelia used some of this from Bible, very, very strange word, and Amelia, but in this place, this is only usual language, nothing difficult. And I think that it's very difficult. Difficult for them because sometimes we have chosen poems from very different periods in Russian, in Ukrainian, from 2020, from 2015. to 2022, about 7 or 8 years. Yes, and sometimes I used very simple way to explain something. So on the level of language, I made something very, very it's easy to translate. Then not transparent fix are under words, and you try to understand what about this poem. It will be difficult, but to translate it's easy. Sometimes I use this mix very
metaphor.
very mixed metaphor. How Amelia calls, because it's for me it's connected with modernism tradition. I like this in each literatures, in different literatures, but for me it's only it's also connected with Baroque tradition of Ukrainian literature. I was really surprised in Bulgaria. Then one poet, woman, I don't know, about 60 years, came to me and told that, your poetry is like poems of Yuri Andryczyk. What? I was really surprised. I have I don't see something similar. But she was smart, and she told me, you don't understand. You use something Baroque things, not like but by your own say, but you and. Okay, very famous. Okay, yes. And now, I really like Amelia say, I can wake up. She has 2 husbands, job, and 2 small little kids. I can wake up at 6 o'clock. Thank you a lot, but I can because I usually go to sleep very in the morning.
It's been easier with Iya in Iowa because of the time difference. It's easier.
Yes, and now
it's been, I will say, I've never worked as closely with a poet on translations as we have with Iya, and for me it's gold, because I'm also a literature scholar.
I'm very important person in this, because my understanding of poetry translations, like poetry is very it's not camera chamber thing, because not so much people read poetry, are interested in it. We have this myth that is very difficult. I don't know why, but I don't see reason to if we haven't so many readers, what reason to make bad translations?
No, they have to be good.
I don't know.
No reason to make bad translations, even if you have no readers.
Yes, yes, but I understand that all we have other things to do. Amelia among us, only person who has kids, and they are little now. It's like it's primary school.
They're still in primary school.
Yes, only son, and it's very difficult.
Yeah,
but it's amazing.
It's been a really interesting process, and what's important to us in the translations is that if there's a mixed metaphor that is supposed to be disjointed, we want to make sure that happens in English. And sometimes, we also are interpreting, as anyone does when they read poems, they interpret the metaphor, and then sometimes the interpretation leaks through that smooths it over unnecessarily in the English. And we need to go back to Iya and make sure that we're getting the same disjointedness in our English to show that jarring image.
For me, it's I don't know. I didn't think about this or read about this. For me, it's not interesting question, but very often it's levels of poetry which are not very often discussed. Very often you use, for example, this morphological analogies when you read one thing, but with like syntaxes, you understand, people can understand that you say not what you wrote. I use my own associations with many things, and it's impossible without conversation to understand. like about with roses and rose rose hip,
The rest
because one editor from Norway asked my translator
from Norway.
to ask me why I write very often about roses and
Mhm.
rose hips
Mhm. Yeah.
one time. And
So we get this special privilege as translators of getting extra information that readers are not supposed to have. You're supposed to just take it and go with it. But you know, sometimes we pick up the references. We try to as much as we
I'm
can.
oppressive. Yes,
And
I'm
sometimes-
oppressive. I'm oppressive.
You're oppressive? Sometimes, not always, but you know, it's good. I like your oppressiveness. It pushes me to be a better translator. We have these conversations about things like the word so, you know, is so okay as a translation for all these different things in the Ukrainian. We use so all the time in English, and it's a very poetic word. It's a word people use to start lines, you know, the Seamus Heaney translation of Beowulf
But for
begins
me,
with
this
so.
so sounds like Ukrainian Oje or Italian Allora. But
also
I know already. I know that we in English people use so in more ways.
More questions?
My question is kind of related to translation. When you were explaining Iya and when we were listening to the poems, I realized that there's some things that are just really hard to translate, where you can translate them and they don't have the same connotations, like "Відбій повітряної тривоги." Any Ukrainian hears that, you know exactly what that
Yes.
means, right? But you hear, even when I heard that translation in English, I wouldn't have necessarily picked up. So, and you know, and there's other references like the manicure of the woman in Bucha that maybe aren't so immediately obvious when it's translated into English or to an English-speaking audience. So, I mean, a question for both of you. I wonder what your approach is. Do you kind of leave it there and you hope that they would pick up, or is it important to you to, you know, to add a gloss, to add a preface to these kind of things?
So I'm in the middle of writing the introduction now, and I will talk about certain difficult spaces in the introduction to the book, but we're not going to do footnotes. I think that just it's too bulky in poetry. But yeah, of all kinds of things. I mean, for example, you know, in this poem, the tear-stained, tear-soiled handkerchief will never burn, right? That's a quote from Master and Margarita.
For me, you can find very transparent allusion to very famous poet here.
Yeah,
For me,
I didn't pick up on that until I heard it in the Russian, actually. Like in the English, and then the Russian,
Right.
I was like, oh yeah.
It's Frida, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. But you know,
not only.
It's also, oh, so now, okay. It's also a reference to a
Mostly
poem.
not. This is with association with poem, very famous poem.
Okay, so,
Not with Bulgakov.
Okay.
no, it's not just, okay. Well, we're gonna have, I mean, this is really useful. We'll find the original source. No, but this is the process, right? We pick up some, or maybe we pick up on some where I'm like, I know that's from Bulgakov. And it's not. Or we don't pick up on it at all. And hopefully we convey, I mean, I think there are probably some situations where a translator will convey something as closely as possible, and their reader might get something they missed. And that's something that, like, Anthony Appia has written about that in his writings about translation, that, you know, you want to have a translation that's so close to the original that even if you miss the reference, the reader will, you know, the more intelligent reader will get it. Obviously, sometimes that's not going to happen because we've botched it. But sometimes, hopefully, it still will. And because we have Iya working with us and looking over all of these things, we try to catch the references. But the classic example is Nabokov's translation of Pushkin's Eugene Onegin, which is like so useful for scholars, but it's unreadable by students because he footnoted everything so heavily that it just ruins the entire thing. And he tried to make it's awful. And nobody wants to read or give someone a gift of poems like that. You want the poems to speak as poems.
So the publication is, you said Harvard's publishing it?
Yes, yeah.
And there's going to be, it's from poems from 2015 on.
There are some early poems. It's about 80 something poems, 82,
Wow.
I think. And yeah, there are some very early ones from 2014, 2015.
How many points?
How many poems? 82, yes. 82.
83.
Мгм.
About 80. About 80.
Від 15-го року
Yeah,
до
2022.
22.
In the
And
middle
you're
of
writing the
2022.
introduction.
I'm writing an introduction. Yes, I'm almost
And in two languages. And I don't know. I'm not deep. I wasn't deep involved into Russian tradition,
Mhm.
but of course I used with Russian tradition from Russian culture discourse. Of course, and Ukraine at a very different poems. I don't know how it will look for readers because then when I used Russian language, of course I thought about to create something new in Russian at all, not in Russian in Russia only, because in Belarus, in Kazakhstan, in many countries, people use Russian too now. Only with Iowa writing programs, there was a girl from Kazakhstan who wrote in Russian only.
Mhm.
And she was published in US and received some prizes for poets. That I thought about how write something new, looking for all people who write using Russian, not only associated themselves with Russian culture. And then when you write in Ukrainian, of course, you think about something new, but you look only on your tradition.
Mhm.
And it's different tasks, different language, different logics of language, of natural language, and it's very difficult. I think we'll try to organize it in some
Maybe chronologically.
I don't know how organize this poems to for this borders between different periods will be not visible,
Yeah.
or be opposite to make them very visible.
Right,
Yeah.
right, excellent.
I don't
I mean,
know.
often,
but
often chronologically is just the most logical way to do it for readers.
I used for new book in Ukrainian with appear in December with chronological order. I start with the last poem
first. Yeah, this is I think this works really well.
And I know that many poets do the same.
Yes. Yeah,
because this like old language, all our problems, no, they're not so old. They are connected with the same word too, but language is changing so quickly, and reality and our understanding and of time and many things. But if I started from poems from 2019.
It would be strange. No, you go reverse order. Absolutely.
Reverse.
Absolutely. Iya's poems have really spoken to people. Not just since the war, but
Amelia really like me.
I really like, obviously, I've just translated 83 of your poems, but no, but it's not just me. It's there are a lot of people translating Iya's poems right now, and I think there's something about the association, the imagery, and the figurative language that works in English, regardless of whether the translators get everything. And so I'm really excited to see this book come out, and with the most contemporary first, so that people really see this very, very, very present use of imagery.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So hopefully next year, or
we hope early next year. It depends a bit on the list.
Early, okay.
We hope.
I have different.
We don't know.
I have different information.
See, I'm a Californian, and so I'm optimistic, and Iya is going to be pessimistic and say it'll be like December, and we don't know. It depends on the list. They have a very long list.
We hope to finish our. I don't know. We already checked half of our.
At least half, So we're hoping to get it in.
A little bit more that we will finish to December.
I'll help you before, if the book doesn't come in my course next semester, maybe I can borrow some of these translations for.
You're
for
teaching a
students.
course next semester. We'll tell Oleg that and we'll say, I'm sorry, needs it by
January 19th.
January
First class,
19th.
So,
So,
At some point,
Preprints.
already published, and of course.
thank you. Any more questions? We have about 5 minutes left.
there was a question back here.
Yes.
Hi, I'm gonna just hand out some.
Yes.
Yes.
You mentioned this language shift, which I find really interesting. And you said that going from one language into another, it's not just like start using a different words. It's like coming into a new universe of a new language, reinventing yourself as a person and as writer. How did you overcome this void, this reinvention, this process of reinventing yourself from scratch as a writer when you stopped creating new poems in Russian and switched entirely into Ukrainian? So how was it for you? Sorry, it's more empirical question about your feelings about it rather than some, logical explanations how this process happened.
I tried to start. I think I understood.
Що так же так, що як ти
I can
передумала
repeat it in
Варвара?
Ukrainian.
То,
I can repeat it in Ukrainian.
Oh, if you'd like to, yeah.
I understand. I'm sure that I understand general sense, but some words that I don't know, I don't understand in your question. No, how it was this process. I think that I really wanted to do it because I remember myself and my family in 2024. There was revolution, orange, so-called Orange Revolution, and
2004, yeah. 2004, 2014, 2004 Orange Revolution.
Oh, it was
What is
the
it?
first
Yeah,
one.
2004.
Yeah.
And I felt that I want to be with these people. They people do what I appreciate. And after that, I started to be interested in literature more. Because not all people in Donetsk too watch Ukrainian movies because the cinema and music are more popular than any literature, even fiction. All people really liked, I don't know, Okean Elzy, but the same people went to the elections and voted for the Yanukovych. So paradoxical. No, but
Published like Okean too.
Right.
yes, no, because this music helped them to express themselves, to feel themselves. Yes, but Yanukovych was for them like our guy from our district. I don't know. I didn't work with him, but I can imagine it's like local patriotism, something not critical things, and I really but during this revolution of dignity, I was very ill. I wanted to go to Kiev. My mother told, "You go from hospital and hospital. I will not help you if you will. I'm not about dying. If you become more sick, I will not help you. You don't think about realistic things." And I was deeply involved on emotional level in all these things, and I again felt that I have Ukrainian identity. I feel myself like this people, and then was occupation of Crimea, annexion of Crimea, occupation of Donetsk, occupation of Azamet, and then I came to Kiev. I met personally a lot of Ukrainian contemporary poets, first of all, and I understood what for me it's very important to do something in Ukrainian, because now I have people with whom I can share this. To discuss, to share, because in Donetsk I hadn't some people who wrote in Ukrainian. We have such writers, but I think it was paradoxical situation with writers who wrote in Ukrainian were more famous somewhere in Kharkiv, for example, but not in Donetsk. And many very outstanding Ukrainian writers, prose writers, were invisible for people in Donetsk, of course. No, because we have Stashkina, Erfienko, and Snosev. I don't know if he's not writer, he's prisoner, but now he's writer too, and journalist, yes. And many others authors, but it's infrastructure, cultural infrastructure of Donetsk. Well, we hadn't this infrastructure, and I remember that I really want to do something, and so more I had to do something with Ukrainian language, Ukrainian literature, because I opened for myself a lot of names. My favorite period in Ukrainian poetry, of course, 17th. Of course. Чубай, Лишева, Голобородька, and others, Stus, like between 16th and 70s, and I like 70s at all, and 18th, like Serkiewicz and his erotical poetry. Sometimes many I opened because living in Donetsk, I had no opportunity to know about this literature. I don't know, and as more I had to do. No, I really wanted. It's like I don't know, to stop smoke. If you want, you want. If you don't want, you don't want. If you really want to write write in Ukrainian, you can start. Other question, how як багато ти можеш.
How much you
В яких which proportions? Because I wasn't sure that I can switch, and that's why I was bilingual poet a long time, because I didn't feel free in new language, and okay, it's very boring. I need to cut something. And for me, it was okay, it's political question, but I very easily explained it during conversations in Marcy Shore 2 days ago, that I really felt this conflict between my author's identity and my Ukrainian's identity. It's all this is tragedy. It's like personal tragedy, because from one hand, you understand what I don't know, future of your personally, of your country, of if you have children, of your children here, in this, I don't know, European, not with Russia. And you understand it very, very transparent, very clear. And from other people, you can express your at this moment only in Russian. What you need to do, kill yourself like author, and how it helps somebody. And a long time I explained it that Russian language is not only Putin's language. It's true, of course, but because, and I was really angry because I lost my home, I lost many things, job, home, friends, because friends spread everywhere. It was this word. Many beautiful things in my life, and language was only one thing that I really had, and it was only Russian language. Because my passive bilingualism was very limited, if it describes it honestly. Because for write in Ukraine, you need, if we can describe language like building with many floors, you need, with my mother, architecture, and he planned buildings. when she was young. You need know about this building all, about each floor, about basement, about roof, about communications, about where you can use electricity or not, where there will be restroom or not. And in 2014, I didn't know what I need about Ukrainian language, like about this
The
very,
structure.
very big
Yeah.
construction,
Yeah.
because you need to be free, like at your own home.
Mhm.
This, you know, when we all people know it, when we come back to our home, we don't think about where like my, I don't know, pajama, where we can turn in light. We do this automatical. For me, Ukrainian language wasn't automatical in 2014, but I really wanted. I like to learn new things, to teach, to study new things. I studied Hebrew, I studied Yiddish, I studied Polish, and right now I know Polish for my tasks. I don't write in Polish, but speak, read, and other things. Okay. And I felt that I'm not free. I felt a lot of limits, and how I felt Ukrainian. But for poetry, this is language of emotion. First of all, you need you don't. I don't know about fiction. I don't write fiction or non-fiction. Non-fiction, yes, fiction. But when you're a poet, you need to catch this wave. And it's not about language. It's not about language at all. But you need to know language very, very good for this. And when you feel this wave, poetic wave, it's like sexual thing too. You need to be totally naked to do something with this wave. And if you will do about how this will be this word or this word or this word, you can to write poetry, because no, it's impossible. And other thing that no, because I really like this phrase of Czesław Miłosz, and I like idea of music of poetry. And some days ago, I found this phrase of Czesław Miłosz, who wrote when he was very, very old, that poetry is the breath of sentence. Yes, it's not that poetry is not about language at all. It's only breath of sentence. It's paradoxical, and I felt with limits, and I felt that I couldn't switch language. Last call to go to Ukrainian, because I felt with limits. I felt very not so free, because in Ukraine we have this paradoxical conversation that people ask why it's very difficult to learn Ukrainian. It's very difficult because for each language people need at least 3 years for each language. It's practice. It's common practice if you really want to know language good. And if you go to some store to buy something, it's no problem. But if you want to create this language, not using this language, create this language, you need to be free. And I have a beautiful friend. She's famous Ukrainian translator, and she told me, we met, I don't remember, after a year past full version. Yeah, I remember from which things you started. No, some of which things were okay, but now you really create. But I did a lot of invisible job for this. I read more and more in Ukrainian. I tried to understand. I used dictionaries, because some of our poets are like Gerasimuk and many our beautiful poets. Some of the beautiful poets, like Shega. What?
Olena or Vasil, you mean?
Gerasimuk?
Vasil. They used regional words.
Yeah.
Yeah, Olena not use. I don't remember. It's the same language. Sorry, of course. Vasil Gerasimu, but many of our poets and our writers used very regional words. I'm from East, they are from West, and I read dictionaries. I try to understand, to imagine, to feel. No, it's like experience. But my first point, I want to do something in Ukrainian. If person no, I don't know. And on 24th, I really thought that I will stop to write at all because I didn't know about myself that I can to go to Ukrainian. No, because you can, of course, you can use dictionaries. I know who do this because I'm professional editor and translator. You can use dictionaries. You can translate yourself and tell that you wrote these things in Ukrainian. But it's why it's very strange things, and. Unfortunately, if you write poetry, it's not very easy to translate yourself from Russian to Ukrainian or Ukrainian to Russian, because I started to translate my poems in Russian to Ukrainian, and I see that it's untranslatable for me. I see all this lost in translation. No, but I don't know. But and finally, the last sentence, I need to say that now I'm very happy from one thing. I don't feel in myself now this conflict between identities, between poet's identity and Ukrainian identity. But it make me happy. It make me more free in my I don't know writer's job. But I understand that more if you write in English or in Russian, you will have more translators, more readers, and blah 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 blah. And after this workshop in Iowa, I see this difference between empire language and how authors from use empire language, how they are present around the world, and how people from so-called not great language like Finnish, Ukrainian, Polish, many. But for me, this question not for authors, for universities and for institutions, because people can open more small departments or sub-departments to learn some things.
Well, that speaks well to the Harriman Institute. That's a beautiful place to end, because this is one of the few places that's dedicated itself to Ukrainian. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for this very intimate into your poetry, but also into translation and action. We saw several times. We are all now part of this book that's coming out.
That's right.
So we all buy it.
Thank you for your
Thank you
question.
so much for your questions, and thank you for our guests for this wonderful event.
It's your job, but people, I think, want to go to lunch.